picture this because I know you have been exactly here. You're sitting on your couch and you've just carefully crafted a message.
Oh, yeah, we all know that feeling.
Right. Maybe it's a long text to a friend or a post or just a deeply vulnerable thought you've been, turning over in your head.
And you probably edit it like 5 times.
Exactly. You edit it, you tweak the wording, you delete a sentence so you don't sound too eager.
Naturally.
And you finally hit send, you put your phone face down. A few minutes later, you pick it back up, check the screen and see the little read receipt. And then absolute silence.
Or you wait 3 excruciating hours and your screen lights up with a single devastatingly lowercase word, yeah.
Yes. Oh man, that lowercase, yeah. And in that very specific, very quiet moment, you get this tiny sinking feeling in your chest.
Yeah, it's off.
It's not necessarily anger. It's not even immediate sadness. It's this quiet, deeply uncomfortable realization of a truth we spend, most of our waking lives trying to outrun.
Which is the terrifying possibility that nobody actually cares about you as much as you think they do.
Exactly. And today, we are pulling from a massive stack of sources to figure out why. We've got a really fascinating mix of material here for this deep dive.
We really do. We're looking at everything from modern psychological studies on digital alienation and sociological papers on performance, all the way back to the private, brutally honest journals of Roman emperors.
It's quite the spectrum. And our mission today is to explore the psychological roots and the modern social mechanics behind why that silence hurts so profoundly.
And, maybe more importantly, we're going to uncover why accepting that nobody cares might actually be the single most liberating truth you can ever learn.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with the mechanics of that text message. The pain of receiving that lowercase yeah or being left unread isn't about the word itself.
Right, the word is harmless.
Exactly. What hurts is the sudden denial of a very specific, deeply human need. In the moment you hit send, you want it to be the absolute center of someone's attention, just for a few minutes.
Yeah, you unconsciously constructed a reality in your head where your message was the most important event happening in their day.
You essentially cast yourself as the main character, and you just assumed they were happily playing the supporting role.
Which reminds me of the Stoic philosophers in our reading, particularly Marcus Aurelius. He had a really grounding, almost brutally unsentimental take on this.
Oh, Aurelius pulls no punches.
No, he really doesn't. He pointed out that stressing over fame or reputation or how people react to you is completely illogical. Because, the people whose judgment you are so desperately worried about are entirely consumed by their own fleeting lives.
Right. They are going to die, you are going to die, and it's all just temporary.
Yeah, and they don't even fully understand themselves, let alone have the bandwidth to obsess over you.
Which cuts right through the noise. I mean, we expend a staggering amount of mental energy imagining an audience that is constantly watching us, taking notes, and caring about our every awkward stumble or brilliant insight.
Like we're constantly on a stage.
Exactly. But a lot of the mid-20th century existentialists we looked at, Albert Camus specifically, framed this as a fundamental mismatch between what we want and what reality offers.
The idea of the absurd, right?
Yeah. Humans have this desperate, intrinsic desire for the universe to answer us, to confirm our significance. But the universe, and by extension the general public, responds with a vast, non-malicious silence.
It's not a personal attack.
No, it's just silent. And Dostoevsky explored this too. His characters suffer immensely because they expect others to understand them deeply, a depth the world never promised to provide.
It's like thinking you're the star of a grand theatrical play. But everyone else on stage thinks they are the star, and we're all just aggressively delivering our monologues at the exact same time, completely ignoring each other.
That is a brilliant way to visualize the cognitive bias we all carry. I mean, we are biologically tracked behind our own eyes.
Yeah, literally.
You have never experienced a single second of your life where you weren't the center of the universe. So of course, your brain defaults to assuming your text message is a monumental event.
But think about the person who left you on read.
Right. They aren't sitting in a dark room maliciously plotting to diminish your self-worth. They are frantically trying to figure out how to pay their rent, or replaying an argument they just had with their boss.
Or simply wondering what they're going to make for dinner. Everyone is walking around carrying these massive, invisible burdens. Wait, hold on. Let me push back on this a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
It's easy to say everyone is busy with their own monologues, but if we logically know that, why does our brain still react to being ignored like it's a literal crisis of existence?
That is the big question.
Right. I mean, if I know my friend is just busy at work, why does my stomach still drop when they ignore me? Logic clearly isn't winning the battle here.
Because logic is bringing a knife to a gunfight against something incredibly primal. When we dig into the psychological studies in our sources, we see that the pain of being ignored bypasses our rational brain entirely.
Goes straight to the core.
It touches on our foundational evolutionary need to be seen and validated. Think about a toddler who draws a chaotic, scribbly picture and immediately sprints to their parents, holding it up like a trophy.
Oh, sure. Look what I made.
Exactly. They aren't looking for an art critique on their use of negative space. They're looking for a behavioral confirmation that says, I see you. You exist.
I get the toddler analogy, but aren't we supposed to outgrow that? Why do fully functioning adults still rely on this external mirror to feel like they haven't literally disappeared?
Well, we never outgrow it because of how human identity is constructed. A lot of foundational psychology, particularly from thinkers like Carl Jung, argues that our ego, our very sense of self, is fundamentally formed through reflection.
So we need other people to show us who we are.
Yeah. You cannot see your own face without a mirror. And psychologically, you cannot fully know who you are without observing how other people react to you.
That makes sense.
We figure out our boundaries, our humor, and our value by bouncing ourselves off the people around us.
Sigmund Freud talked about this too, right? The idea that our surface behaviors are really just aiming to satisfy deeper, unacknowledged needs.
Exactly.
So when you get secretly furious that a friend forgot your birthday, it's not really about the cake or the fact that they didn't buy you a present. You are using their memory as a mirror. It's this desperate need to know that your existence has actual measurable weight in someone else's life.
You are fundamentally asking the universe, do I matter? And when the answer is silence, things get psychologically dangerous.
Jean-Paul Sartre had a lot to say about this.
He did. The philosophical sources describe this as existing in the gaze of others. When someone is actively looking at you, listening to you, you feel solid, you have form. But when that gaze vanishes, you don't just lose their attention, you lose your mirror. And without that mirror, your sense of self literally starts to blur. You start to feel formless, like you're disappearing.
That blurring sensation is terrifying. And it completely explains why people start doing increasingly unhinged things to get the mirror back.
Oh, absolutely.
If you feel yourself fading, you adjust your behavior to force people to look at you. You post something louder or more controversial online, you change how you talk, you buy clothes you don't even like, all just to guarantee someone will cast their gaze on you and prove you still exist.
Which is exactly what Friedrich Nietzsche warned against, living for imaginary gazes. It creates an incredibly toxic cycle. When you start changing who you are just to remain visible to others, you trap yourself in an endless loop of dependence.
You become a hostage to their attention.
Precisely. You are letting an imaginary audience dictate your reality.
Okay, so if we've always had this primal psychological vulnerability, if humans have always desperately needed this mirror just to feel solid, what happens when you take that ancient, fragile vulnerability and drop it into a modern system that is mathematically designed to exploit it?
You get a society-wide crisis of alienation. Because social media and digital communication didn't invent the human need for attention.
No, the need was always there.
What they did was unprecedented, though. They quantified it. They took this abstract, primal need to be seen and turned it into a highly visible, relentlessly updating public scoreboard.
Yeah, we are checking that scoreboard 50 times a day. It completely changes the dynamic. It's no longer just wanting your friend to smile at your joke. It's needing 100 strangers to hit a heart icon so you know the joke was objectively good.
What's fascinating here is how this alters our entire societal structure. The sociological research, like the work from Jean Baudrillard, points to a massive shift in how we experience daily life. We have moved from living life to performing life.
But performance fundamentally requires an audience.
Exactly. And the modern digital audience is inherently unstable. They are bombarded with endless content. They look, they scroll, they forget in 3 seconds. So you are trying to build a stable, enduring sense of self on an incredibly unstable, fleeting foundation.
It's exhausting. And what's wild is that nobody is standing over us with a weapon, forcing us to do this. We're doing it to ourselves.
Yeah, it's completely voluntary.
A lot of the sociological theory we review, like Michel Foucault, talks about how modern power dynamics have shifted. We don't need an authoritarian dictator using physical force to tell us we aren't good enough.
We do the policing ourselves.
Right. We voluntarily sign up for these platforms, we submit ourselves to the algorithms, we compare our raw, messy lives to the highly curated metrics of strangers, and we independently conclude that we are failures.
Which perfectly illustrates the concept of alienation mentioned in the text, particularly Karl Marx's ideas applied to modern identity.
How so?
Well, when the sources talk about alienation today, they mean a literal disconnect between who you are and what you do. Imagine you spend a month building a beautiful handcrafted wooden chair, but a massive corporation comes in, puts their logo on it, and sells it.
You would feel completely disconnected from your own hard work.
Exactly. Today, we do that with our personalities. We package our lives, our traumas, and our jokes into 15-second videos. And if the digital feedback doesn't reward it with views, we feel entirely disconnected from our own identity. We no longer know if we have value unless a machine tells us we do.
That creates a really dark paradox, doesn't it?
A massive one. We live in a system where absolutely everyone is desperately demanding attention and validation. But because every single person is so hyper-focused on securing their own mirror, their own validation, nobody actually has the energy or bandwidth to give meaningful attention to anyone else.
The demand for attention vastly outpaces the supply.
Exactly.
So, if the system is mathematically rigged against us, because demand for attention vastly outpaces the supply, how do we stop playing a game we are guaranteed to lose?
To stop playing the game, you first have to face the exact thing you've been running from. You have to experience what happens when the audience completely disappears. You have to transition from the deafening noise of the scoreboard to the pure, uncomfortable silence of being truly unobserved.
The sources refer to this moment as the existential drop.
Yes.
It's that really quiet, highly uncomfortable moment. Maybe you're sitting alone on a Tuesday night. Your phone hasn't buzzed in hours. No one is reaching out to make plans. And it hits you. If I don't initiate contact right now, the world is just going to keep spinning without me. No one is coming to check on my storyline.
It's a profound shock to the nervous system. The philosophical texts, bringing Sartre back in, point out a harsh reality. The gaze of others isn't yours to control. It comes, and it goes on their schedule, not yours.
And when that attention inevitably fades, you are thrust into a kind of psychological vertigo.
Kama's concept of the absurd really captures this. It's this dizzying realization that the external meaning and validation you were building your entire self-worth on simply isn't there anymore. It can vanish without warning, leaving you standing alone in an empty room.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like realizing your emotional Wi-Fi has been suddenly disconnected. The initial panic isn't just about the physical fact that you're sitting alone in your living room. It's the sheer shock of being untethered.
That's a great analogy.
You know when your phone disconnects from the internet, and suddenly this incredibly powerful device just feels like a useless heavy brick of glass in your hand. That's how we feel about our own identities when no one is perceiving us. Without the network telling us who we are, we feel broken.
And that Wi-Fi panic explains why characters in Dostoevsky's literature suffer so immensely. They genuinely fear that without that network, without a mirror to constantly observe them, they simply do not matter. But we have to make a vital distinction here, and this is crucial for the listener to grasp, because it's easy to misinterpret this as pure pessimism.
Let's clarify that, because nobody cares. Sounds like a terribly bleak way to live.
Right. Realizing that no one cares in this overarching, constant way does not mean no one loves you. Your friends love you. Your family loves you.
It just means that human capacity is severely limited. Relationships have limits.
Exactly. Sartre noted there is a constant underlying tension in human relationships. We want the absolute freedom of being a completely independent individual, but we simultaneously want to be entirely perfectly understood by someone else. You cannot have both.
We basically want someone to look at us and instantly know we're having a terrible day, understand all the nuanced reasons why, and fix it without us having to utter a single word.
But as Kamos noted, the world lacks synchronization. What you're feeling incredibly deeply right now, the person sitting on the couch next to you simply cannot tune into because their brain is occupied fighting their own internal battles.
Yeah, I mean, think about the cognitive load required just to manage your own life. Expecting someone else to perfectly track your emotional state is asking them to do the impossible. This raises an important question, though. If we accept that this lack of synchronization is normal, and that the emotional Wi-Fi is always going to be spotty, how do we live with it? Because hitting that existential drop sounds like a recipe for a depressive spiral.
But the sources suggest it's actually the opposite. Hitting the bottom of that drop is the foundation for ultimate freedom.
And this brings us to the Stoic pivot, the ancient survival guide for learning how to live unobserved.
The Stoic philosophers offer an incredibly practical, timeless solution to this crisis.
So if needing this emotional Wi-Fi is hardwired into us, but the modern world is designed to short-circuit it, are we just doomed to be miserable? How did people survive this feeling before smartphones?
Well, thinkers like Epictetus taught a very stark rule. If you place your peace of mind in things you cannot control, you are guaranteeing yourself a life of misery and instability. And what is more entirely out of your control than the attention, opinions, and gaze of other people?
Literally nothing. It fluctuates by the second based on their mood, not your value, which echoes Marcus Aurelius again. It's wild to think he was a Roman emperor, literally the most watched, most scrutinized man in the known world at the time, and his private journals are just him constantly reminding himself, do not let the fluctuating opinions of the crowd become the definition of your character.
So the strategy they propose requires a fundamental shift in your internal dialogue. You have to forcefully stop asking the question, who is watching me right now? And replace it with, what am I doing with my time right now?
It's shifting the power source from external validation to internal reality. Seneca, another major Stoic thinker, argued that the true value of an action lies in whether it is real, not whether it is seen.
That is the core mechanism of freedom, right?
It makes so much sense when you apply it. Writing in a private journal that absolutely no one will ever read, doing a mundane good deed like picking up trash on your street that you never post about online and no one ever praises you for, that is how you prove you exist to yourself.
You stop relying on the external mirror and you start generating your own emotional gravity. And, Friedrich Nietzsche and other 19th century philosophers arrived at a remarkably similar conclusion. They argued that the truly strong individual is the one who can stand entirely alone, completely unobserved by the world, without needing a witness to confirm that their life has meaning. They are self-authenticating.
So what does this all mean? Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Is this Stoic approach actually telling us to become emotionally numb to our friends and family? Are we supposed to just isolate ourselves and say, I don't need anyone? Because that sounds just as lonely as waiting for the text message. Where is the line between healthy independence and just being cold?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is absolutely not about becoming cold or cutting off human connection. The goal isn't isolation.
Okay.
You can still deeply enjoy being loved, being seen, and being appreciated by your community. The critical shift is that you no longer depend on that external validation to justify your basic right to exist. Maturity, in this framework, is stopping the demand for others to constantly validate your reality.
I see. It's the difference between eating a beautifully cooked meal because you genuinely enjoy the taste versus frantically eating because you'll starve to death in 5 minutes without it.
That's a fantastic way to put it.
You can enjoy the applause and the attention when it happens to be there, but when the play ends and the audience goes home, you don't collapse into a puddle on the stage. You just turn off the lights and go home, completely intact.
That is the perfect summary of the journey we've taken through these texts today. Realizing that no one cares isn't some tragic, cynical insult that the universe is hurling at you. It is simply the baseline, neutral condition of being a human being among billions of other human beings.
Right.
Once you truly accept that everyone is the overwhelmed, distracted main character of their own story, you are instantly freed from the exhausting, impossible task of constantly performing for them. You get to step down from the stage. You become the responsible, grounded center of your own life, rather than a blurry background character begging for a sliver of spotlight in someone else's.
So, to you listening right now, I want you to think about your own habits as you go through the rest of your day. When you do something, whether it's at work, in your relationships, or online, are you doing it because it is real to you, or are you just waiting to be seen doing it? Are you secretly waiting for that lowercase yeah text to validate that your day actually happened?
It's a tough question to ask yourself.
It really is. Because if the Stoics are right and the true enduring value of our actions isn't tied to an audience observing them, does the concept of leaving a legacy after we die even matter? Or is spending your entire life worrying about your legacy just the ultimate tragic form of performing for an imaginary audience, an audience you won't even be around to see?